Now, with that, as we are officially open, I would like to welcome our first speaker. Now, starting at Keynote, I'm very proud of our lineup that's mostly Norwegian. So I'm going to be inviting Shaun Reardon to come to the front. He is from DNV and he's going to be giving us a talk on the investigative mindset, the key to success. Now, I'm not going to introduce him. He's going to tell you all about himself. But we have another little surprise for you. We have an artist, one of our students, in the audience. She's there. Put your hand up. You will actually be drawing all the sessions and the doodles will be released after the fact for you guys to download from the website. So, Shaun, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Lady the artist, can you give me a full head of hair, please? And some muscles. Yeah, and lose a bit of weight at the front. Yeah, some of that will do. Thank you, Veronica. I'm really pleased to be here. I'll give you a small world story. So Veronica contacted me quite some time ago. I was only in for a while. She said, would you be a speaker at our B-side? I went, yeah, of course. Anyway, we got to know each other. And I found out she was from South Africa. Now, back in 2003, 2004, I was working in South Africa when I was in the police, as you'll see, with the South African police in the digital forensic laboratory. Anyway, we got chatting and I turned around and I said, this is a really long shot, but do you know a guy called View Grobler, who is the head of the unit that I'm still in touch with? And she went, he is the reason she is here today. Now, what a small world, eh?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, and congratulations on your black hat. No, I saw it posted. No, I only know a couple of people that have done black hat. Congratulations. Okay, so this is about an investigative mindset. I shall try and make it as entertaining as possible. I like to think I have a sense of humour, so please don't be too strict. Although most of you are wearing t-shirts, I've dressed down for today, but I'm English. Hey. Right, so we're going to look at what an investigative mindset is. And it doesn't matter whether you're a red teamer, a blue teamer, purple teamer, a forensic investigator, an intelligence operative. The general principles apply. Okay. Now, I'll warn you now, part of this presentation is interactive. I'm going to ask questions. If you don't answer me, I'll pick on you. Okay, because I'm like that. Okay, so before we start, I'm going to introduce myself in a bit more detail. This is an important message. For the non-Norwegian speakers, I'm led to believe that says important message. I do speak Norwegian, but badly, but I do understand it, so be very careful. Yeah. Yeah, I'm a foreigner. Must be 8-9 years ago, I was presenting at a big conference in Oslo, 400 or 500 people, and people loved it. But one guy was going, who do you think he is? Okay, so I always put this up now, and it always gets a laugh. So, who am I, and why should you listen to me? As Veronica said, I work for DNV, which is the global third-party assurance company, specifically DNV Cyber. I do lots of things. I'm an old guy. I've been doing this for a very, very long time. First got my hands on a computer at work in 1978. Yeah, so some of you weren't even around then, but yeah, about 1978. And over the years, all sorts of security, particularly cyber security, but specifically digital forensics. The interesting part, I think, is I was a detective at Scotland Yard for 26 years before I retired in 2015. 4 days later, I moved to Norway. Anyone want to guess why?
The climate fishing flight.
Well, a woman. Yes, it was a woman. Yeah. Why else does an older guy move to a foreign country? Skiing, absolutely. Yeah. I love the cold weather. Absolutely love it. I live in Trondheim. I've worked on all sorts of things: counter-terrorism, espionage, kidnap, human trafficking, the UK National High-Tech Crime Unit. The reason I mention that is over those years, you've seen an evolution in techniques and tools, but the mindset remains pretty much the same. And it depends whether you're offensive or defensive. Although I investigated as a normal detective, uniform first, and then as a detective for 19 years, I specialised in IT, cyber investigations. And back in those days, it's the old saying, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. And there weren't many people that had any sort of competence, and there certainly wasn't in law enforcement. It was a really good opportunity to go down. When you combine forensics and incident response with investigative, the day-to-day stuff, it gets quite interesting. So, some fun facts. Anyone here not been on an aeroplane? No, I thought not. Picture at the top, left-hand side, that is the reason you can only take 100 millilitres of fluid on board a plane, even to this day. That was in 2006. There was a plot to blow up 7 transatlantic airliners in flight, causing massive death. I was the lead forensic investigator for that, digital forensics. We found all the evidence, and I gave all the evidence in court, and it took about 4 years. Now, there's a good lesson to come out of this regarding communication, how you, as experts in your field, communicate your findings or your thoughts to other people. So when these terrorist jobs start, and this was the biggest one there was at the time, and there was probably 1,800 police officers involved in this, in London alone, plus all around the world. The pressure from the government for briefing and foreign government is intense. They really want minute by minute updates. And I was running the digital forensic lab, and about 4 times a day, we would be called up to Scotland Yard meeting room, and all the heads would say, right, what have you got? What have you got? What have you got? And it was all about briefing up to the government, because they had to answer questions. And on about day 3, I think it was, we've been working around the clock, sleeping on desks, just, whatever. So I got there, and one of the bosses called me. He said, Shaun, how are you getting on? I said, yeah, fine. How are you? And he said, so how much have you got so far? I said, well, it's early stages, but we've probably got, I don't know, about 100 computers at the moment, 200 or 300 phones. Because basically, if you're anywhere near a terrorist investigation, it's gone. And in those days, we had internet cafes, plus personal devices. He said, right. He said, so how many terror giggy mega things have you got, bytes? And I went, oh, I don't know, it's difficult to say, but in those days, it's about 4 terabytes so far, which we've managed to image, do a forensic copy. And he said, and he was probably a bit older than me, but this is going back 15, 30 years. He said, yeah, okay, but if it was all printed out, how much would it be? Now, when he, like many people, were told that a floppy disk, was 1.2 meg, and it's 100 pages of A4 and 12-point printed. I said, no, sir, you don't understand. It's these days we've got video, we've got program files, we've got to look at everything. He said, no, come on, you've got to give me something, because I'm briefing up to the commander, and the commander briefs the chief constable, and the chief constable briefs the cabinet office and the prime minister. I said, I can't do it. He said, Shaun, don't be so bloody awkward. Will you give me some information? I went, okay. Sorry. If it was all printed out, it would fill Scotland Yard 4 times over. Scotland Yard at the time was 2 tower blocks with 15,000 people. Okay, so it's quite a big thing. You went, there you go, wasn't hard, was it? And off it goes. So we're in the lab next door, next day, and we've got these big TV screens up, Sky News. And suddenly someone comes in and says, Shaun, did you just see what Theresa May, the Prime Minister at the time, has just said? No. So she was in the Houses of Parliament, TV cameras, the whole lot, briefing the country, briefing Parliament. Counter-terrorism, SO15, have done this, they've captured this many computers, they've made so many arrests, and it's a vast amount of data, and if it was all printed out, it would fill Scotland Yard 4 times over. So I made that up. But she still doesn't know who I am. So the lesson there is communication and understanding. As an investigator, don't just take what you're told at face value. You've got to dig into it, because people come up with misconceptions, as we see a bit further. Second one down, very briefly, this is the London Olympics in 2012. I was the head of the digital forensics for terrorism and the cyber operations team lead. They were really, really worried that the bad guys would hijack a ship, the big one. And they'd done this before, back in the early 80s in London. They got caught though. And they were going to capture a ship and ram it into the south coast in the sailing events. So loss of life, damage, reputational damage to the UK and the Olympic movement. So it was myself and 2, and we were trained by the UK Special Forces. So that is me dangling out of the helicopter, and that's me at the side of a ship, how to board ships. So the special forces would attack, capture and kill. And when it was safe, they'd go, all right, boys, in you come. And we would, you know, be helicoptered in. And the idea was to do fast time forensics. You know, if you've got a ship and you've got their computers and phones, we want to know where they've been. Second lesson, evidence is rarely comes from one place. So if you know where that vessel's been to approach the ship, you can check the shore, you can check mini-bank cameras, you can check shops, you can check bank records. You know, so it's all about building this big spider's web of a picture. Anyone got children here? Yeah, of course you have. Anyone heard of the Teletubbies, the children's? Yeah, everyone? Well, these elite special forces, probably the best in the world. And then you've got us, Scotland Yard detectives coming down from counter-terrorism, maybe slightly, you know, portly. And they used to call us the Terror-Tubbies. But we let them get away with it. And just moving very quickly, this is the poisoning of Alexander Litvinenko in 2011 by the Russians. Well, they put polonium-210 in his food and he died. That's me on the left. So we had to do digital forensics in full suits in pressure-controlled rooms. It was very low radioactivity, but I'm not taking a chance. I'd already had my children, but this guy on the right, he was a bit concerned. So, again, hybrid. This is a security assessment done fairly recently in Norway, looking at cyber, but physical, about what could people do? What doubt could they cause? So that's where the investigative mindset comes in. It's not about people boarding it and being awkward and chaining themselves to the vessel. It's about, if they've got into your server room, they might not have done anything, but you don't know that. So when you're planning, you know, either a post or forward investigation, that's what you have to look at. Offshore, now forensics, the word forensic has no translation into Norwegian, the way that English speaking. So the definition of forensic is the application of science to law. The nearest I found in Norway, and I've been here quite a few years now, is rettsmedicine, which is pathology, you know, after death and that sort of thing. So forensics is typically reactive. Something has happened, you're trying to find out what has happened, who did it, so on. You never do either pen testing or you never do penetration testing on a production environment, particularly in the industrial sector. A couple of years ago, just before the World Cup, or 3 years ago, the authorities were really worried that after all that other criticism they've had of human rights and, you know, treatment of orientation and so on, they couldn't afford a cyber attack. So they wanted these rigs, or some of these rigs, tested to see if they were vulnerable. Now, we couldn't pen test them in the traditional sense. We couldn't red team them because you put one packet in there into old industrial equipment and it goes and falls over. And you've got millions and millions of dollars a day. What you can do is use forensics proactively. And what that means is, because you're not putting anything on the system at all, no packets, all you're doing is using a bit of CPU. And if you're monitoring the CPU usage in agreement with the operators, if it goes over 70, pull it. You know, because some of this stuff is really, really flaky. Some of it's 50 years old on the operational technology. And finally, this is in the Yemen. This was a terrorist job. That is a staged photo, but they wouldn't let us go outside without body armor and a hat because they're snipers. As I went into Yemen, I had all my forensic kit. I got searched. In a very loud voice, they said to me, "You are MI5, British intelligence." I went, no, please. I'm working with the embassy phone them. No, you're MI5. So I got detained for about an hour, longest hour of my life. Okay, let's move on to the good stuff. 2 things I do not want to hear you say, 2 words. I do not want to hear the word guess. I do not want to hear the word assume. Okay, that is different from reasoning. But when someone said, "Oh, I guess the shop's open at 9," because they normally do, evidentially or investigatively, it means absolutely nothing. And assume, "Oh yeah, I think that's true. I trust that person perhaps, or I trust that source." No. If anyone says that, you're going to get a free holiday to Svalbard in January in your shorts. Right. So, any doubts on that?
Yes, so.
Yeah? Okay, types of investigation. How are we doing? I'm notorious for going over, so I'm keeping an eye on my watch. So there's two types of investigation. It's quite a broad word. So what does it in fact mean? So an investigation is by definition reactive. Something has happened. You know, there's been an accident, there's been a crime, there's been whatever. And an investigation or an inquiry is put together. It's all about the who, what, how, when, where. It may result in proceedings. Now, whether that's criminal proceedings in court or whether it's civil proceedings for damages, the burden of proof is different, but it's going to be reviewed by somebody else. So you've got to get it right. I'll tell you now, it's happened to somebody I know. They give evidence in court, they made a mistake on sector sizes, and they were proved wrong in court, and they could never give evidence in court again because the defence would bring it up. Is it right that on this date you gave this evidence? How can we trust your opinion? You have got to be right if it's for proceedings. It could be internal proceedings. You know, it could be discipline, it could be HR, something like that. But if you get it wrong, your reputation, well, you might have to go and do something else. Admissible, this is important. Various legal systems have different rules. In America, if you obtain evidence and you're not exactly perfect in the way that you've done it, it'll be excluded no matter what. A video and 10 witnesses, and if you've got that video without a search warrant, it's not admitted. UK is different. It's up to the judge. But things like product of torture, okay? No government in West will allow evidence obtained by torture to be used in court. Sometimes you might have been a bit sneaky in how you've got your evidence, yeah? So it won't be admissible. So when you're doing reactive investigations for proceedings, you've got to stick to the rules. And it seeks the truth based on facts, okay? And this is important, as you'll see in a moment. It has to be based on fact. It has to be capable of being poked into by the defence. In an adversarial system, that's how it works. It's different in France. They have the inquisitorial system. So you need to know what legal system you're working in. And by definition, they're quite structured. You know, you go out, you identify sources, you get evidence, you test evidence, you try and find other evidence, put it together, and it goes to the prosecutors. On the other hand, I would say this intelligence investigation applies to a lot of people here. So by definition, it's proactive. You don't know the answer. Yeah, you have gaps in your knowledge. So you have to have an investigative mindset to find out what those gaps are, find out what you don't know, then you task into those gaps. It's forward-looking, it's threats, it's risks and intentions. Subjective. It's not necessarily admissible. In some jurisdictions, the UK, intercept evidence of telephone conversations are not admissible in court, okay? But they can be used for intelligence. When I was on kidnap, the amount of times that we went into court when we caught them, and we always did, and the jury would send up a note to the judge and say, Your Honour, how did kidnap unit know to be intersection 42 on the M1 motorway at 3:56 in the morning? And then the judge, because he'd been briefed, would go, very good question, move on. Yeah, so it was inadmissible. We couldn't use that sort of evidence in court. It could be that you tricked someone. It could be an undercover thing and you want to protect the methodology. It could be signals intelligence, what DCHQ, NSN, NSN, NSA. Some of that will never be exposed because you want to protect how you did it. If you tell the bad guys, then they're going to avoid it. It's often incomplete, it's rumours, it gives you indicators, but what it allows you to do is infer. Yeah? Infer, make an educated guess. So,
Yes.
good, someone's awake. An educated guess. But the thing is here, they're interchangeable. So quite often an intelligence operation will lead you somewhere where you can actually evidence it in a correct way. And that's called parallel evidencing. The example I just mentioned, Yeah, we were at that motorway, we saw that red car, we pulled it over and we rescued the hostage. How we got there, either it's inadmissible or we're not going to admit it, except to the judge in private. Yeah. So parallel evidencing, investigation turns to evidence, evidence leads to intelligence. And there's two main types of investigating. There's deductive, hence the Sherlock Holmes hat. I deduce this. And your characteristics will be these. Yeah, and you can see that these traits are engineers, scientists, detectives, and analysts. They have general rules and theories and they apply them to the problem. However, I think a lot of you are going to relate to this. Inductive from the bottom, you observe patterns and you form ideas from specific observations. When you're pen testing and you get a feel and you see what's open and you see what the defences are like, that's where you're doing the bottom-up approach. You're being a bit more creative. It's rare to find intelligence and investigation handled at the same time by the same person. Different mindset, and it's very difficult when you know something not to reveal that in evidence. And if you're up in court, you can't lie. So if you've been part of the intelligence aspect of it, you can't really do the investigation. And this is artists, entrepreneurs, and qualitative researchers. So what sort of year? Yeah, I didn't expect an answer. Okay, trust. This is an important thing. Depending on where you go in the world, people trust. And it's not each other so much, it's as a society, not male, female, whatever. It's as a country. Do you trust your institutions? 0 is I don't trust anyone. 10 is I trust whatever you say. France, 3.3. Any French people here? Good. Is that true? Very low trust in your institutions,
No.
governments. You don't trust them.
Well,
No. Exactly. And I've got lots of French friends, and they all say the same thing. England, 5.5. Yeah, that's about right. I'm a Brit. I think, and they might agree as well. Have a healthy respect for some of our institutions. Until we had Boris the buffoon and Liz the clusterfuck. So, a lot of that went out the window. You go up to Norway, 7.4. I give a lot of presentations and I come off stage and people say, Shaun, it's all very interesting, but it won't happen in Norway. I go, really? Why is that? It's against the rules. So when you're doing this investigation, bear this in mind. You know, you have to examine yourself. Now, good, okay. I think we're going to get there. What is intelligence and how do we get it? Right, go back one. Collection of information. Okay, it could be from anywhere. It may be true, it may be false, doesn't matter. But it can be processed and analysed. You identify what you don't know. It can be used to give you an advantage, militarily, politically, commercially, as industrial espionage. It can be gathered from absolutely everywhere. So this takes it outside of admissible sometimes. It can be combined with statistics and common knowledge. Anyone come across the birthday paradox? Yeah, good. A couple of nods. How many randomly selected people do you need in a room to have a more than 50% chance of having the same birthday? Not the year, but the day of the month and the month.
23.
Oh, yeah, you're right. So 23, and that defies logic. And to have over, was it 99% chance, how many people do you need?
15?
75.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, you can use statistics and intelligence. You can't go to court and say statistically, that person there, he's likely to have done it because he's got a beard and a staff and he's bald like me. What's it say about me? You know, you can't use those in court, but you can use it as intelligence. And it allows you to infer, to make an educated, who picked me up last time? Yeah, good. Right, let's have getting quite close on time, so I want to do this with you. This is a picture of a cutting board. In fairly quick time, I want to know what you can infer, to shout it out. And when you give me an answer, my first question is going to be why? Why do you think that? Yeah? Question for the end, what is the gender of the person using that cutting board?
it depends.
I'm sorry?
It depends.
It depends.
It depends. You're a lawyer, aren't you?
Universal answer to any question a crazy person asks you.
Yeah, but that's the whole thing here. It's about influence, but it could depend on so many things. Okay, number one, we're running out of time. Make me an influence about the person using that cutting board.
Right-handed,
Right-handed, why?
because the knife is on the right side.
Excellent. Okay. Tell me about the knife. Someone else. Yeah,
Japanese,
Japanese. How much?
1,000.
Yeah,
Maybe.
expensive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe 2,000.
So you could infer that if a person hasn't received it as a present, but they bought it, they could tell you they like cookies. And they've got some economic, they've got spare money. Yeah. I did this in NTNU in Trondheim, and we talked about the economy, and someone shouted out, "Not a student." Yeah, okay, good, excellent. Next.
Not a vegan.
Not a vegan, why?
Eggs.
Eggs, yeah. Well, they could be vegan, but they're not. What do they call it?
Not vegetarian.
Thank you, yeah. Learn something every day. Right, yeah, good, excellent. Next,
It's located in Norway.
I'm sorry.
It's located in Norway. The cheese is
Good, I'm
vegan.
glad you did that. Why?
As the cheese, it says an animal stone. I don't know if you can get the cheese in other countries where the slogan is in Norwegian.
Is it? Where else could it be with that language, that writing? Denmark. Could be Denmark. So you narrowed it down geographically. It could be. Anything else?
If they're making carbonara, it's shit.
I asked, yeah, go on. That's it, Katie.
Probably not a trained chef. That's not what you do with an onion when you're cutting it.
Exactly. Yeah, so that could either infer that it's either a stage photo or they're not a trained chef. So good. All these things bits of information to build up other bits of
The
information.
eggs might be raw. Why else would you put them in the groove like that to keep them from rolling away? You don't want them to break.
Excellent. And what else did the eggs tell you? And the cheese and the onion.
Structured.
Structured, possibly.
I'm not going there for dinner.
Are they allergic to those ingredients? Probably not. They could have, sorry,
Probably not lactose intolerant.
probably not, yeah. And the thing is, if this does happen, if you wanted to take out somebody really, really important, like CEO, from a merger meeting or something like that, if you can get these allergens into their food, yeah, then they would disappear for 3 days into the small room. So you can say that they are not allergic. I know it's a bit off the wall, but this has happened. Okay, what else? Okay, male or female? Why?
Big night.
Big enough. Hey, look at the size of my laugh, girls. Yeah, could be. Anyone else? Okay, look at the shadow being thrown across the board. Yeah, from bottom right to bottom left. Where do you think the light source is that's generating that shadow?
Ceiling.
Why?
The angle.
Exactly.
It feels like the ceiling light is behind the person.
Yeah.
And from the female, my female friends, they are more likely to use lamps rather than ceiling lights.
Yeah, good working
Nice.
assumption. Yeah. But sticking with the ceiling light, sorry,
Are they tall?
why do you say that?
They're closer to the light, so the shadow is sort of bigger.
Yeah,
And it's more blurred.
and it's more blurred. What about these shadows at the top and the eggs going in the opposite direction?
Mirror, reflective surface,
Could be a reflective surface or
multiple light sources.
multiple sources. What could that other source be? Window?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you're inferring a structure of a building and something about the people, perhaps. When I did this before a few times, someone shouted out, "It's a woman!" Or this man shouted out, "It's a woman!" I went, "Oh, why's that?" He said, "My wife's so untidy in the kitchen." Okay, and again, I did this in Stockholm to a client, and I said, "How tall?" And the guy said, 186. And I just like 3 horses, 2 men, 2 days ago, Indian style. I said, "Why do you say that?" And it was just a guess. I took this photo. It is a stage photo. I'm 186, and all the observations you made are correct. So by bringing in all these incomplete bits of information, you're building up a bigger picture. You have a depth of 1, which means nothing, a depth of 2, corroboration, additional information. Oh, I've got a couple more minutes for you. Yeah, thank you. What do I do with mine? So that's intelligence. You're taking bits from anywhere. It could be from children. When I was doing informant handling, recruiting insiders, there was a procedure where we could actually recruit children to inform. That's all been stopped now. You may not want to use them for evidence. You'd be silly to really, but you could use them for intelligence gathering. When I was out in the Yemen, we collected a load of information out there from computers. No government would allow it to be used in court because it was obtained by torture, we assume. Yeah? But no government will turn a blind eye to intelligence, no matter how it's got. Can you imagine, if there'd been another Breivik and the government knew about it in advance, but because that information comes from dodgy sources, they didn't act on it? Yeah. Everyone's going to act on intelligence. Good. The problem with intelligence is that there's no one to validate it. There's no one to test it. There's no one to defend it. There's no court to examine it. So you come up with this thing called 5 by 5 by 5, which is a grading system. And what you do when you're looking at your sources is how reliable is the source? So an A is absolutely never been wrong. And that would normally apply only to things like DNA, or some hard scientific evidence. And as it goes down, is they're almost always right. Often right and wrong, goes down. The information credibility, is it corroborated? Is it, how does that person know it? Is it have they overheard it? Do they know it themselves? And finally, the handling instructions is where it can go. So 1 is distribute widely, 5 is what we call compartmentalization, that it can only go to a named person in a named organisation. That's very common in intelligence operations at national level. So, to finish off, an investigative mindset is curiosity. Don't let the rules hamper you. As long as you know how to convert them lawfully into evidence, you'll be fine. Critical thinking, absolutely essential. France, 3.3, Finland, 8.6, but they teach their kids critical thinking in schools. Why is that important? Denmark, 8.6, and they have the highest number of breaches caused by human error in GDPR. Yeah, because they trust everyone. If you phone up Denmark, they'll tell you whatever you want. Objectivity, know where you're going, persistence, and always think to yourself, why? That person's just come out from the left. Why? And if you train yourself, you can just become cynical as I. And in conclusion, be honest with yourself. What type of investigator are you? And once you know what you are, you can either try and counter it. So it's like countering bias in research. This is a big problem. Don't project your own morals and ethics onto problems or solutions. I see so many people in cybersecurity, they look at a situation and they go, nobody would be so bad as to turn off the electricity to the incubator in a special care baby unit and kill a baby. Yes, they bloody well do. So, but a lot of people think, no, I just can't imagine that. And they blinker themselves and they miss everything on the outbuild. My advice, start on the out, overlay it with the risk, overlay it with the cost and the legal authority, and then come up with your conclusion. But do not do that to start with. Be curious. That's obvious. Never stop asking questions. Never guess. I said it, I can say it now. Never guess. Infer and test if you have to. And something I always say, security is a mindset first and foremost. It doesn't matter if you can do light assembly in your sleep. Yeah, security is a mindset first and foremost. And that is it. I apologise for going slightly over time. Any questions? I'm going to be around until about 1 o'clock when I'm going back up to the frozen north.
Thank you very much.
Oh.
No, this is not the right.
What's this? Is this one? You can't have that one. No, well, you're just text off.